Catus Maximus here. Some branded tool I don't run into that often, although they've made a whole bunch of tools for a lot of companies under a lot of different brands. You just don't run into actual New Britain, at least I don't, run into a whole lot of New Britain actual branded tools. Of course, made in USA, they use like a microscopic stamp. This happens to be the NS-57, 14-inch long, half-inch breaker bar. Really like this unit. It's actually the first New Britain breaker bar I've run into. I'll say it's pretty nice, maybe not. Something aspects about this maybe say that it is not quite as good as I would have hoped, at least on some quality control and just design choice aspects, but it is still an excellent breaker bar, definitely alloy steel. Once again, 14 inches. That happens to actually be what the standard length for half-inch drive breaker bars is. And then they've been getting longer and longer these days. As we know, they're just some huge 18-inch, 24-inch, etc. Anyway, not a bad unit. Talking about some of the other good stuff that I like about it. Pretty deep knurling on the handle. Always like knurling just because it's easy to grip. Through hole just so you can hang it, although that's something that's pretty rare on a lot of tools, especially modern days. Kind of like the design aspect of these little undercuts here. They did deburr the hole so it isn't sharp. Other good things. Pretty nice ball detent. Definitely pretty strong. Holds onto the sockets quite nicely. I wouldn't say this is quite snap-on. I always use snap-on as an example because I found so many, or run into a lot of snap-on tools that just have incredibly strong ball detents. This one is just right. It's definitely pretty strong, but it isn't going to like lock the socket on there and make it impossible to remove. As far as some other aspects about this, things that kind of caught my eye is that the anvil, as you can see, is kind of a more blocky design versus, say, a more rounded design that we have on this Hazet here or this Proto. I kind of like the way they're just been turned down on a lathe. It's just a little extra operation. Something New Britain didn't do on this unit. Another thing here is we can see that when they're grinding the buckle, this is definitely forged. If I rotate it, it may be hard to see on the camera, but you can actually see a hump here and a hump here, a result of the forging. This is a one-piece forged breaker bar, so definitely, once again, high quality. But when they were grinding this, they kind of left these corners. They are a bit sharp. And once again, as we can see on some other tools like this Proto here, it's a bit more rounded. Same thing with this Hazet, just a little bit more rounded. And I would have actually liked to see that, but saved them a little bit of money on grinding work. But once again, it is a bit of a sharp edge. You know, I can say that the resistance or the spring in there that keeps the anvil from flopping back and forth, still in great condition, although we can see that this breaker bar hasn't been used that much. The last thing I was going to say is, it's still related to this grinding, is that they got a little close to the hole. You can see that the webbing here, just a little bit thinner. Would have been nice if they just paid a little closer attention. And it could have just been this particular one, the day of the week, and the particular person who ground it. So, as we can see, just a little bit thicker on the Proto, and then something like, once again, this Hazet, they left a ton of material, really extra strong on the fork. One thing I will say on this fork is they're not very long, so it is going to give it just a bit of extra rigidity. And it's something to consider with this pin style. That's why a lot of breaker bars have actually started to go with a screw. That way you have this threaded fastener that helps prevent the forks from wanting to spread out as much. But it really is kind of a minimal thing. Anyway, just wanted to talk about this New Britain half-inch drive breaker bar. Don't run into them very often. I'm pretty stoked to have found this, but I'll have to say it's probably not my best vintage breaker bar. I have a Williams that I really like. Little Protos, once again, are pretty nice. German Hazets are pretty nice. And I think at least this New Britain, overall, I like its design. I think it's pretty nice. It does have a slight taper where it gets real thin or real thick up here at the neck, where you have the most stress, so that it deflects less. Just wish I would have maybe ended up with one that had a little bit better of a grind and profile up there, and then if New Britain would have just put a little bit more money to make a nicer anvil. Anyway, really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing, and if you haven't subscribed, please do. Till next time, Catus Maximus out.